Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. I saw Lola, I saw you pop in a few minutes or as soon as we got started. Thank you so much for being here. So glad to have all of you on the Paint Party live stream this week. I'm excited for what we're going to paint this week. And so glad to have all of you. As you come into the room, wherever you are watching, feel free to engage in the comments. Whatever platform you're on, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever, glad to have you. So grateful you're here. It is kind of open house, so pop in, pop out whenever you'd like. And yeah, that's how it works. So let's kind of get this party started. Hope you had a great week. This week I've been really working to finish a last probably last commission of the year, and just got approval that from the client on the final product. So getting that ready to ship out this week, and I'll show that to you all once the client has it in hand and has an opportunity to see that. But that's kind of where I have been focused this week. And so I haven't done a lot of additional painting to show you. Usually I like to show you kind of what I've been working on. But if you follow me on Instagram at Stephen E. Rice, you will see the progress photos of what I've been painting the last few weeks there on Instagram. And that's the best place to see progress photos as I paint. Of course, YouTube is the easiest, best way to find the live stream, as well as my personal vlog as I kind of adjust to mountain life and everything that goes on here in my awesome little mountain town. So let's go ahead and get started this evening. So glad to have you, as I said. Grateful for each of you. Let me pull on my palette here in the corner, and then let me put up this reference photo for you all to take a look at as we paint. That is what we are working from this evening, so you'll be able to follow along. Let me pull you all closer to my canvas and adjust the camera here so you can kind of see what is going on. All right, there we go. I think that's a pretty good angle. Let me pull my chair up here. All right, so what I'm going to try to do this evening is actually start with an underpainting, as we usually do, blocking in the largest points of dark and light. But this week I want to actually really try a new technique. So I'm going to take a little green, mostly white, and maybe a little brown, and we'll see if we can get values plugged in. Also, I am using about a 1-inch flat brush to start. As you will know from previous live streams, if you have joined us before, the goal is to make some very, very fine marks, or very, very broad marks, loose brush strokes, not a lot of detail. And one way that I'm training myself to do that is by using a large brush. You can't get very detailed if you have a big brush. Okay, so I'm mixing here some, it looks kind of peppermint green on your screen, but it's actually a pretty dull brownish green, as kind of, I think this is going to be our, I'm not sure if this should be our dark or our light. So let me take a little bit. Let's see. Let's just get some paint on the canvas and see what happens. All right. Okay, so what I want to do is start blocking in the largest points of kind of the lightest spots. Down here. And I'm just looking at big shapes. I'm actually kind of squinting my eyes to get these shapes in. Okay, now what I want to do is come in and actually mix a darker color, still a little green, brown, this darker color, and let's get some of that on the canvas where our darkest colors are going to be. So we'll come in there, maybe in there. Let's get dark. Okay. We're going to have dark there, pretty much this whole area. That's going to be our dark spots. Whoops. So we'll kind of come in there. Whoops, I'm painting my phone cover. Let's just move that out of the way. All right, we have some dark in there, under the flowers, kind of dark area. Whoop. Up in here. Definitely in there and around here. Okay. Okay, so that gives us our dark colors really quickly. Again, the colors aren't super accurate. They aren't super, there's not any detail at all. But as we build layers, because with acrylic paints, they dry quick. And so one way to get detail and some better realism is to do layers. And so we're just layering in the very basic colors. And we're going to do the same with the flowers. I was going to do them all in one color, but I think we can move to at least tinted colors. So let's come in here and put some red. Let's call this our shadow color. Okay, so we're going to put a little blue so we almost get some purple. We're going to bring in blue so it's kind of purple, and then maybe even some brown. So it desaturates the yellow in the brown, and the green in the brown is going to desaturate the red. So we get a good kind of shadow color that's still got kind of a pink hue. That's what we're doing right there. So let's just come in again with big shapes. Okay, then we'll take some more white and some red. Let's come in and just put just where we see kind of the highlights of these petals. Bring in some light here. And I'm painting wet on wet, so that's why it's kind of smearing a little bit. But of course, we'll refine all of this, but this just gives us an idea of where the brightest spots of these are. And then what we'll try to do the rest of the time is go back and forth between the background, the flowers, just refining the detail. That's light. So there's light here, light there, light here, light there, light there. We have some light in here, but there. Yeah, I'm just making sure I got all the light spots. Some light here. Okay, so it's really rough, really ugly, but I think we got the majority of what we're trying to do. At least a first cover. Okay, so there we go. Now, I noticed that my background is drying already, so I want to go back to that. And I think, oh, that's not quite dry. So I want to give it a few minutes to dry up some, and then we'll be able to start working on the background and, of course, the flowers. So we'll dial that in a little bit. Welcome to those of you who have come in after the live stream started. So glad to have you. Feel free to chime in as we go through the show tonight. Wherever you're watching, you're welcome to chat with us in the comments. All right. So let's come in and get a little, that's still a little tacky, so we'll give it some space. Let's come in and see if we can do another layer of the background. This is rattling. I don't notice it as much when I'm just here by myself, but I realize that's probably going to be a pretty obnoxious rattle in y'all's ears if it picks up on my mic. So move the other palette plate out. Okay, we have a really dark green here. Now, since I have my kind of values laid in, now I'm tuning in just a little bit some more of the colors. So before I wasn't getting any color very specific. Like we weren't doing, it was just darks and lights. Now I'm coming in, adding some more chroma, which is the color intensity with some raw umber and phthalo green, I believe, or is it? Yeah, phthalo green. And raw umber, and let's see. I can see the colors in the picture you're putting on the canvas. That's awesome. That's the goal. What I think our eyes see actually is as we go is the relationship between the values, because the colors are not super accurate, but when you get the proper value relationship correct, then it looks, you can see that what Lola, what you're talking about, you can really see it start to come through, because it's like, oh, that is correct. Even if these are probably a little more purple and a little more lavender and pastel than they would end up being, the value relationships may be better. And so, yeah, that's the, okay, and I'm trying to hold this on the canvas to paint all the way to the edge, but okay, there. And this gives us a chance to kind of come into all these areas. And as we do this, we're automatically defining the limitations of our flowers. So by just putting a boundary around them. Hey there, Julie. Thanks so much for stopping in, even for a few minutes. I really appreciate it. Have missed you, and I hope you're doing well. We'll have to catch up sometime. And as we put boundaries in around the subject matter, then we start to see the definition. So now let's take a little bit of, I'm going to bring in some sap green, which is, I'll put it next here to the phthalo green so you can kind of see the difference of the green. So this is more of a yellow green, that's more of a blue green. So we'll bring a little bit of this in to the previous mixture, which will lighten up. It'll give us kind of an army green, but it will be a really nice contrast, but it'll also be a lighter, it will appear lighter, at least that's the intent. But it also gives us still a very good base coat to work with. And again, here I'm just focused on the light-dark relationship, the light-dark values, because as I refine those, actually instead of white, probably what I should do is bring a little yellow here so I don't desaturate that, but we'll have a really nice natural looking green start to appear in these leaves. Okay, there's some lighter leaves in there, some light, and with very basic brush strokes, I'm kind of just X and Y my way through this with the type of brush strokes I'm doing, because again, I'm using a pretty large brush. Then I start to suggest some light, how the light is playing off of these hibiscus. Okay. Now we have a good background, I think. Let me go up here and just kind of fill that in. We'll come back. I haven't decided if I'm going to paint it as close to the reference as I can, or if I'm going to really darken the background and pull these forward. We'll kind of figure that out as we go. I'm thinking about doing something similar to what I did or am doing on this one. I painted this or started it like a week or so ago. Oh, that's not wanting to. Okay, let's see if it will. There, it's starting to. So I don't know if you can tell, but this background is really dark. And then I just have suggestions of the greenery behind it, but it really starts to bring the subject matter forward. So I'm thinking of doing something similar to this. There's absolutely no detail in these. They're just blobs of green and dark green paint on kind of a bluish gray background. But then it gives the suggestion of greenery, but then really brings the subject forward. So I'm thinking about doing that with this painting as well, just because I like that effect, but we will see as we get into the painting further. All right, now we have given the flowers a little bit of time to dry, and the background is it's still wet, starting to dry, but the flowers are pretty dry. So let's come back in here and let's see if we can tune in as we did the background. So I'm going to start with my red, kind of that vibrant red, and I think maybe I'll put just a little bit of brown in that. Just a little bit of brown and maybe a little bit of blue. Let's see what that does. Gives us a good but vibrant shadow color. So then we can start to come in and put suggestions of our shadow again, I'm just going to put the major shapes. This won't cover the first time just because it is, just because the red is so translucent. But it'll give us suggestions of where these shadows are going to fall. And it gives us somewhere to start to play with the, let's put a little more blue in there and a little more brown, to play with the lighter colors too. Okay, so there's a real shadow area across the top part of this flower, and a little bit there where the stamen is, then here a little bit. Okay, so again, just blotchy, blotchy, blotchy. So I'm gonna over here put some dark, dark, dark to indicate that wilted, kind of wilted petal over there in the corner, but it's kind of there. Let's also put some of this, just a suggestion, just to get our feel for where the center of the flower is going to be. And then I'm putting some more, just darkening that shadow, because I think it's, I'm now moving wet paint on wet paint, so it's not super effective, but little by little. Okay, now I'm going to bring some white into the red, brighten this up a little bit. Let's see what we can create. Okay, out on this edge, we have some light. There's a kind of the top of this flower, or this. Again, now I'm coming in and trying to define some of the, a little more specifically, some of the shape of these highlights. And we'll just keep refining these as we go. And hopefully that will start to give us some shape for the actual flowers. Some of this will be way off because I'm not taking a lot of time to really think about it. I'm trusting my eye and going with it. So I'm just kind of plopping these big spots of highlight where I think my eye sees it. And we will adjust as we go. But all of a sudden, you can see we're starting to have a little bit of shape. Now this one is the most off, so that's what I want to work on a little bit, if I can do it without without messing up the wet paint. Oh, that's more orange. I don't want that red. I thought I wanted that red. I don't want that red. We want that red. So this is more orange. Well, we will use it. Let's come in there. Actually, that might work for some of these highlighted spots. Because there is some orange in there, especially in the reflection of the stamen. Top of this petal. That's cool, because I don't think I would have noticed that if I hadn't put it on the palette. So That's what Bob Ross used to call happy little mistakes. Oh, if I didn't put that on the thing, I wouldn't have noticed it, right? So, all right, now we start to see the flowers emerge, don't we? Good deal. Every stage I'm trying to be mindful to stop and snap a picture, because I noticed it's really cool, and this helped me. Like when I was preparing for this painting, I went to another artist who's a really good floral painter, and he had posted pictures of about 6 pictures of his process, and it really helped me think about my process. And so I want to be able to do that for this painting when I post it to Instagram. So, all right. Now, let's let that, instead of overpainting, I'm just going to let it sit. Let the flowers dry a little bit, and then I'm going to just go back, and this is kind of tedious, but we're just going to keep doing it. We go back and forth to the background. One thing that this has helped as I'm developing my own kind of skill process is that by switching back and forth, I'm learning little by little not to overpaint. Overpaint is when you Art by Kanchan, thank you. Hi, good to have you on the stream. Thanks so much for popping in. I am going to have to check out your channel. So glad to have you. Yeah, overpainting is when you don't feel like you don't know what to paint, or you're kind of stuck in the process. And so you just keep doing brush strokes, and then you end up, it's basically the equivalent of like, good morning. Glad to have you. It is evening here on my side of the world, but I am glad to have you today, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Yeah, so I was saying overpainting is to me, when I did speech communications, overpainting is the equivalent of dead language. So it's like the ums and the ahs in a speech class. That's what overpainting is. It's basically I'm artistically saying and ah, because I'm not, my brain is working or I'm thinking, but I don't know exactly what I want to communicate. I don't know exactly how to do it. And the best thing, the same for communication, when you're giving a speech and you realize you've devolved into ums and ahs, is often just to stop and give your brain a chance to think a little bit, and then continue with your thought, whatever that thought is. And so that is something that I'm trying to train myself to in painting, is to be conscious of the ums and ahs, essentially, if that makes sense. So now what's going on in my head, I'm coming in again with my dark layers, and every layer on acrylic is going to give us more depth in the finished painting. And so I'm coming in here and starting to try to design or to better define these shapes based on the background that I'm putting around them. So yeah, that's what's going on right now in my head as I am doing this. So we're going to come in with some of the light green again, that yellow green. Let me put some more of that on my palette because I need some more sap green. And we will see if we can add some. Now, by adding a little bit of a yellow hue to this green, yellow is really potent, just like red. You don't need a lot of it, but by doing that, we're going to quickly start to be able to indicate some lighter areas in here without really doing anything else. We'll just put a few strokes of this light green in, and then all of a sudden you start to see hints of sunlight in the background. And so that's what we're going to do with that. And again, all of these layers give us various depths of that, well, various layers of depth in the finished product. I think that's something I didn't realize until recently, and I'm still learning. But when I first started and I would do these live streams, I realized, as an aside, do you all realize today is the 42nd live stream? Now, I haven't done these consecutively because when I moved and the robbery happened and everything, I didn't live stream for probably, 2-3 months. But we've done almost a year of live streams. We have about 10 more to go, which we may be able to get done by the end of the year, but I'm not sure. However, what I realized when I started these, I would try to get a whole, kind of like Bob Ross did, I'd try to get a whole painting done in a sitting or as much as possible. Now I'm realizing that the value or the quality of the painting really benefits by doing multiple layers and allowing and doing multiple sittings of a painting. And so, especially with acrylics, if I do multiple sittings, it gives me those layers. And even in this way of working, although it's in one sitting, I'm trying to go back and forth. We're 35 minutes into the live stream, and I've gone back and forth, I think, about 4 times now between the flower and the background, flower, background, lights, darks, background, foreground. So that starts to give us these layers of layers of depth for the painting. And when you're done, it doesn't look like oil, but it looks a lot more like oil than if you painted all in one sitting. So that's something I'm learning as I'm going, and I'm adjusting my technique to. So yeah, that's kind of my. And I missed you. I missed you too, Lola. All of my regular people. I don't know why. There's just something about the live stream, even though there's only 5, 6, 10 of us that pop in, because I have some people who are lurkers. I had a friend this week say, "Oh, I pop in," but doesn't often comment. And so I know there's people behind the scenes kind of watching, and so there's something like I just really. I mean, I do painting by myself where I'm just here in the studio, but I always enjoy getting in this setting and being able to just hang out with y'all a little bit. So, yeah, that's a lot of fun. All right, I'm starting to get where I'm a little afraid of pulling up some painting because I tend to use big spots in my big sections of my palette. I saw a painter on YouTube this week, and he was painting like mixing a little color here, mixing a little color here, little color here, and he had all these tiny little spots, and he used the most economic and efficient use of palette that I think I've seen. And I thought, man, I want to be more like that. But yeah, not quite there. So I'm mixing kind of the blue green and doing a lighter shade to come in and do some, I think, some variation in these dark areas. Some light that's kind of not the yellow light. I think I'm going to have to water that down a little bit. See, it may be too light because it may bring it too forward. We still want it to recede into the background, but we can always work with it. And by doing now different colors, because we kind of got the values going the direction we want, we can bring in different colors, and then, yeah, that's probably a little too bright, but we can adjust it with the next time we come through. So I overpainted a little bit there. I don't know if you noticed that, but I started putting paint down that didn't necessarily need to be put down. That's what happens. Can you check my paintings? I absolutely, as soon as the live stream is done, I will absolutely stop by your channel, and I would love to see your work. So yes, I'm happy to check and look at your painting. I always love to see what other artists are doing. That is fascinating to me, and always, no matter somebody's skill level, I always feel like there's something that comes natural to most anybody that doesn't come natural to someone else. So you typically can almost always learn something from other painters. What did I have here? Oh, the blue. All right. Well, I put the suggestion of the center of the flower in. So let's go back to the flowers. We should be totally dry by now. And let's see if we can do one more pass with the flowers. As they dry, you notice that the contrast is a little bit lost. So what was bright before, as it dries darker, and it's not as vibrant, not as clear, not as whatever. And so let's go back in and see if we can establish some of that. Want to do kind of a dark red hue that is our shadow. Come in and block in our shadows again. And I'm going to pay a little more attention this time to my shape and see if I can be more intentional about that, and see if I can improve the shape of the I'm still trying to be fairly economic with my brush strokes. But again, I'm doing big blocky shapes. I'm not focused on painting a petal. I'm focused on painting a block of shadow. And see Because if I over time get that better, then this is all dark out there. Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. There's some variation there, but comes across, then it's right there. And it's almost like negative space. Like by filling in the spaces around, then I'm not going to have to really paint the, until we get to the very end and we want to create some, you know, sharp lines, but there's very few sharp lines because some of it will just merge into the background. Then that's the only time I have to be worried about kind of drawing. Okay, there's, okay. I'm not blabbing as much because I'm being a little more thoughtful. Not that I wasn't painting thoughtfully before, but I'm being a little more precise. And so that is why my commentary has kind of lagged a little bit. Okay. Not sure if that's exactly, it feels a little, this one feels a little off. Like it's too crunched up into this flower, but let's kind of adjust that as we go. See if we can adjust that. All right, let me come in one more swipe with the darks, but then let me try the same with the lights and see what we can get. Just dark and light. And I'm not, still have not done much work in varying the color. I'm basically just adding white. Maybe I'll add a little bit of the orange red or the yellow red to this to lighten it up. But let's see if we can come in and be, like I said, a little more precise with our colors, our light colors. Yeah, I think I want to come in and move this down. So I'm going to lay this a little bit here. We'll bring this out a ways. It's got a little bit, but it comes pretty far out. And then behind there, okay. We'll probably have to bring this down. So let's start doing that. Oh, that's a bright, I kind of like it though. Gives us a little bit more contrast there. Okay. Now notice by putting the shadow in and putting in the light around it, all of a sudden I have a shadow that looks like the shadow of the stamen starting to pop up there. I think that's what it's called. Stamen is the long, I know there's a pistil and a stamen from like 5th grade biology, right? But I think the stamen is the long stem in the middle of the flower. I believe, maybe somebody can tell me if you remember. That way I'm not using incorrect terminology. Pistil and the stamen, isn't it? Okay, mix this in. Since that really worked down here, now I'm going to come up here and see if we can define some more. Just put a little more the brighter lights where they are. Right there. Then there's something there. I think right there. Okay. Again, really ugly, but getting there, getting there, getting there. It's always amazing to me. If you keep going through the ugly stage, you can turn it into something you might like. Okay. Wow, how did we already get to an hour? It's almost an hour. Okay, now I think is the time to start switching to the smaller I'm going to switch to a small filbert brush, and so I'm going to set aside my 1-inch flat brush. I feel pretty happy with how this is starting to come together. What do y'all think? Are we slowly getting there? I still think I need to actually, maybe I won't switch the back. I want to do some more background work, but I think I want to try to see what happens if I take some, I did way too much brown in this, but if I take some blue and brown, let me put some more blue out there and darken, make some of this more dark. What happens if you just really sink some of this into the shadows? What if we really darken that? And bring our, I think I'm going to get rid of that bloom out there and just make this really, so the eye is really drawn up into that kind of left quadrant. We'll bring a lot of this back into shadow, really darken that, make it that blue-brown shade so that it's and we'll just put a few green things over. But that way, the main event is still the main event. What do you guys think? What do you think? Let's see how that, then let me bring some brown or some green, maybe a little blue. Let's see. I don't know what color this is going to end up being when I put it up next to the other, but let's see. Oh yeah, it's kind of a muted green, but it suggests that there's variation without being too overstated. In the light and on your camera, it looks too much, but in mine, I think it's going to work. It's kind of blue. Then all we have to do, I mean, I'm just doing like X and dash kind of strokes. So up and down and then X's, and it'll give us that suggestion of variation of leaves. As long as you have like different stroke patterns and then a little bit of variation in the color, that will start to give us that. Now, because we darkened this all looks way too bright and too much, so we'll come in and adjust that. But yeah, I do think I like a darker background where the shadows are almost deep brown or black, as opposed to, and the greens are just a little bit of phthalo green and bluish green. So yeah, we'll do that. And then we'll come back in with the filbert brush, which is about probably a 1/2 inch or maybe 1/4 inch. And that will allow us to start putting a little more detail into the petals. So let's see what we can do in the next about 30-40 minutes here. See what we can create. All right. While I have it on the palette, though, I want to take advantage of some of this dark color, the blue and the brown, the dark blue and the dark brown, to mix, and maybe it'll come out green. We'll see. I'm not sure. But let me, yeah, it's a little green, but I think it'll be okay. I want to start putting this center of this flower together. Okay, now I'm gonna rinse that out because it's pretty dark. Let's see if we can do this red. I think I'm actually going to move some paints around, put my boom, dropping paints everywhere. I need to build a, oh, there goes another one. I need to build something for my wall, a tack wall to hang my paints on that is within reach but is not too crazy. So I'll bring my other palette plate over and put my mixing, kind of actually my palette plate here, but then maybe I can put, I don't know where to put all this stuff. Usually I'm better organized. Okay. Usually I don't have the camera right at my knee. You know what I need to do is get an arm of some sort. I tried to do that, like attaching the camera to the easel, but then I'm concerned that as I paint and it shakes, then you would constantly have shaking of the, so I think I need like a boom arm or something that's gonna be a little more resistant to shaking, or it's gonna have some kind of shock absorber components that will allow it to not bounce every time I paint. Okay, let's see if we can take some of this red and the crimson, mix it together. We want a really bright, vibrant shadow color. So this is like a purple. Let's take a little bit this out of there. Let's see what happens. Okay, we kind of got this purple, so let's try to define, oh, that's a lighter color. So, well, then we'll define some of these kind of mid-tone shadows. These mid-tone shadows will merge into the darker shadows, but it gives us kind of a definite feeling of transition. These are mid-tone shadows. Really makes you look at what you're seeing and break down. Like for instance, right here, there's a darker shadow space and then what looks like it's in light, but it's actually shadow. And so, yeah, like defining those and making space for those differences really adds to the credibility of the painting overall. Yeah, that's a, okay, this, we have some of these shadow spots. Then what we should be able to do is come and tuck some darker shadow into this and some light in a way that will be pretty convincing. Okay. Yeah, now we're starting to see some 3 dimensions. So now let's take this crimson and I'm going to take a little blue. So it's pretty dark, kind of a purple color. Then the brown. Now I'm going to try to look at the darkest spots. So there's a line goes right in there. It's kind of a dark. Some of the Okay. Up here, there's kind of a fold. And again, I'm trying to just look at shapes of these dark shadows and hopefully draw them into kind of where they are. All right. Now let me look up here. Okay, we've done a set of darks. Now let's see if we can go a little bit light. The red. We don't really want to go pink, so we just brighten it a little bit. Maybe, excuse me, put a tiny bit of yellow. Be more orange. Okay. Now let's see what happens when we go in on some of these lighter spots. Put some, just the edge of the reflections. Yeah, I'm really liking how that is giving just a variation, a little bit of variation to the top of these petals where the light seems to be shining. It's not our brightest spots, but it's giving us a little bit of that orange. there's definitely reflection under these petals, because the petals are so translucent that they are definitely reflecting some of that sunlight onto each other. Again, this multiple layers like this will start to give us a feeling of three-dimensional. I almost said three-dimensionality, but I don't know if that's a word. Three-dimensional feeling aspect of this. And if we just keep going back and forth, then eventually we'll have really great colors and variations within the petals that will make it look much more real. And the more layers we put on, the more as they dry, they'll show through more. Okay. Let me just take a half a minute to get down off my little perch and step back about 6 feet and take a look at what is going right, what is going not so right. Okay. The biggest thing I see composition-wise is this is coming out a little too far into this side, but I think that's easily handled with, when we do some edging, creating edges around this. This is probably a little too large here, so yeah, receding or absorbing some of that into the shadows with just the suggestion that this is here could really help. And the rest will be just really defining the shape of the petals. Yeah, I think that's definitely it. So let me go. I think I'm going to go back to the, go back to the background and give myself a little break on the flowers. Dimensionality is a definite word. English major. Hoorah for English majors. Thanks, Marta. Awesome. I was not an English major, but I am fairly precise about language. My mother's was an English teacher, and so I absorbed a lot, but it's helpful to have instant English experts in the room. Thank you so much, Lola. We're getting there little by little. as you said on Instagram this week, each painting is an opportunity to learn and to really spread one's wings, so to speak, from a creative standpoint. I know one of the reasons I chose this painting tonight was because I really wanted to push myself. Flowers are something I've struggled to paint, but I'm noticing I'm getting better and better at them, and I'm enjoying them more because I'm starting to really understand them a little bit better. So that really helps. Okay. I'm taking this really pretty dark. So let me start to see if I can absorb some of that. I'm just trying to put a little bit of edge on these petals so that we start to really understand the shapes and where their limits are. This really helps give boundaries to them. Hi, Aunt Susie. Thanks for popping in. It's so good to see you. I appreciate it. Appreciate the kind encouragement. This is now the opportunity now I can take to start, like I said, put edges around these flowers, and I can start to define their edges a little more, because I can always bring them back out, but just doing a really dark background, I think, will make the hibiscus stand out really well. Trying to give some shape. Otherwise, I'm just doing some basic X strokes so that shows through over time. There's some let's see. My palette's drying up real fast, but I want to come in here, and I think it's right in there that I want to come up with some edge, with an edge, so that I can define the leaves or the petals a little better. This is how we adjust them and move the flower further down. We just add in some shadow around it, and all of a sudden it moves down. Not really all of a sudden, but you know. What are these steps you take on the... Oh, I bet. I hope you had a great summer up north. Get some good rest. I know Grandma's happy to have you back. She so loves hanging out with you whenever she gets to go for coffee or whatever, and I know that means a lot. So I'm grateful that you're there to be able to kind of love on her a little bit especially for those of us who are further away that don't get too often. But yes, get some rest. Tell Uncle Bruce hello. And hopefully I'll get to see you all in a month and a half or so, a couple months. I usually wait till Halloween. After Halloween, then I call the center. So we will see if they are open for events and what we can do. But I'll keep everybody posted as I get information. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, don't want to overpaint. So I'm going to stop that. Go back to my flowers. But I do like the darker background around it, so may come in at the end and add some suggestion of foliage around it. Very, very like back in the background, very kind of undefined and dark, but we shall see. I think it will make just a more dramatic painting with a dark background than a light background. Okay, let's see if we can, we got about 15, 20 minutes more. Let's see what we can do. Now, since I went around and tried to define the petals by the background, let me now go in and see if I can define the petals as I want them with the colors that are on the petals. So let me take a little white, a little orange red, a little red red. Let's see what we can, if we can do some of this. Let's just keep working it out. Okay, this one needs to come up a little bit. So I need to bring that petal in. So I'm getting a little more blocky with my paint. This has a little bit of an edge to it, so I am focused on just putting some highlights where the brightest spots of the light are. It's crazy how bright this looks on here, but then down here it looks, you know, on an actual white background, it's really dark. Where up here it looks so bright and so white pink almost. So yeah, it's fascinating to me. Okay, so this is coming down. So the top of this comes across here, right in here. And then there's the edge. Think of that petal. Then it comes down across there. This one is okay. I like the shape I'm starting to get here. So that makes me happy. Now let me take a little more of the red, purple, or the yellow red. Now I'm going to try to see if I can. So sorry this is so boring, y'all. But it really is like just going back basically one stroke at a time, refining, one adjustment as you go. And so, but I'm starting to see the blending that I want to see. And so I just put in the suggestion of light folds, and all of a sudden see how we have an edge of a petal there. And that's all we keep doing, just adjusting. Refining what's there by what's around it. Can you say Leotrim? Don't be sorry. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Matthew. I hope it's pronounced Leotrim. You can get through this one step at a time. I do hope that this makes you happy, and I hope that this brings some joy to your experience. Absolutely. All right. All right, just a few more minutes, y'all. But it's slowly coming together. May not look like it because it's still that ugly stage, but it definitely is starting to make sense. Now what we need to do is take a little of this red, the darker red, and maybe a little brown. So that it's brown red. And let's see if we can put some shadow into some of these petals. I'm actually gonna use a very small brush to do some of this work because I think if I start to do like some of this petal work or the lines of some of this, then it starts to give these petals some definition against the light. So if I have a pretty defined line against some of these, all of a sudden the petals really start to take shape, and then you see, oh, okay. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Cheryl. All right. We are at the end of our time together. I could keep going and going because I feel like I'm kind of in a good place. But let's see. Okay, so you can see where we're going. Let me hold that closer to the camera. You can see where we're going with the bottom hibiscus. Just slowly adjusting as we go, adding more colors. I'll have to work on the upper hibiscus a little more to get it correct. But our composition is good. And you can see as we lay in the layers, it starts to look more and more realistic. So that's my intent, is to keep layering, bringing slowly up the highlights so that we get the very brightest spots where the sun is hitting the highest. But we'll probably focus on this flower more because I want the eye drawn really into this corner. So that's my intent as I continue to work on this over. I don't know about the next week. I'll be dog sitting for some friends, and so I don't know if I'll have a lot of time to paint, but definitely as I go, I'll continue to work on this. But I feel like we have a good start, and you're starting to see me develop my process. So as we wrap up tonight, I just want to say thank you, of course, to all of you who have stuck around with me. It was a pleasure having you join me for this live stream. Like I was saying, you are starting to see me develop my technique, my style, my way of painting. You're seeing me adjust that as I get more nuanced in my understanding of kind of how I paint, and understanding of where I want to go with my painting skills. And this next year, what I really want to focus on is really refining my skills and pushing myself. I said that a few months ago, but I really want to begin to really refine my skills, really dive into more exploring specifically what things I'm really good at as a painter, what kind of subjects I really like to do. And that will continue to develop, hopefully, the rest of my life. But I really want to push that as we go. That said, I want to thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And I will see you on the next Paint Party live stream. Should be next Monday, weather permitting, and everything that I can get to my studio and get that set up. So if you do not follow me on Instagram, I invite you to do that. That's where I post all of my art paintings, the process pictures on my Instagram. Also, if you are not a subscriber on YouTube, I would certainly appreciate you becoming a subscriber, and that's where you can find these live streams for sure all the time on YouTube. So that said, have a great week, and I will see you all next time. Bye.